This is JP with OCB here, and I bet if you're like me, the recent fires here in Southern California have had you wondering if there's anything you can do to help rebuild after all this damage. Stick with me and let me tell you how we can. So, for those of you who have been following, there are now 3 fires here in Southern California. There's the Line Fire that started in Highland, just north of here. I'm standing here in Redlands right now, which is immediately south. And as you can see behind me, there is a thick coat of haze over the city this morning. What you can't see behind me is the Transverse Mountain Range, which contains the 5th highest peaks in all of California. As of the count of the evening of September 11th, the Line Fire had burnt already over 30,000 acres of the San Bernardino National Forest. The Bridge Fire just over Cajon Pass in the Angeles National Forest has already burnt over 49,000 acres. And then third, down in Trabuco Canyon, the Airport Fire has burnt something like 25,000 acres and counting. Counts for over 106,000 acres of national forest burnt. So this may have you wondering, what is this doing to our atmosphere? As of the evening of September 11th, this had created 2.35 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases and put them into the atmosphere. So what does that actually mean though? That is like putting 558,000 gas-powered vehicles onto the road for 1 year, or the equivalent of driving an additional 6 billion miles immediately. This is also like consuming 5,433,000 more barrels of oil, which for scale, the Exxon Valdez spilled 257,000 barrels of oil. So already, as of September 11th, this is like using oil from 21.15 Exxon Valdez oil spills. This is also like, and I'm going to hold my paper here for a second because I want to get this number right, charging 154,919,636,297 smartphones. And for the record, there are only 7.2 billion smartphones on planet Earth. To remove this from the atmosphere would take 2.7 million acres of US forest for a year to offset. This would also take the equivalent of 2,600 acres of old-growth redwoods or sequoias here in California to remove from the air for a year. For the record, there are 110,000 acres of old-growth redwoods and 196,000 acres of old-growth sequoias in California. And for those of you who are curious, all these methodologies I've followed are prescribed by the Environmental Protection Agency, the US EPA, so these are defined by the government, and this is methodology that renewable energy companies make use of in order to account for the carbon impacts that they're having. So not only has the fire created greenhouse gases and placed it into the atmosphere, it has also offlined 106,000 acres of carbon capturing resources. This lost capacity would have been enough to capture emissions from 47 million pounds of coal burnt, which is the equivalent of 235 rail cars worth, 565 tanker trucks of gasoline, or nearly 100,000 barrels of oil each year, 5,564 homes' energy uses for a year, or 2.8 billion smartphone charges. Now, it can take at least 10 whole years on average for trees to reach peak carbon capturing potential. Actually, in cases of redwoods and sequoias, that can be much longer. So it is really important for us to preserve old trees where we have them. It's also important to recognize that ag trees like citrus, avocados, and certain types of nuts like walnuts have great carbon capture capacity. But aside from investing in our future carbon capture capacity, we also have to replant what was lost. And for the next couple years, each of these communities in the mountains in our national forests are now made especially vulnerable to increased landslide activity. This is where the USDA Plant a Tree program comes in. It's an online platform where individual donors can donate as little as $10 at a time to reforestation efforts in US national forests. Donors can tell the national forests which state and which individual national forest to dedicate that money to. In case you're wondering how much is $10 going to do, Certain tree-free forestation nonprofits have been able to replant an acre of national forest for $68 alone, so roughly $1 per tree. The program is entirely online. It took about maybe 2 minutes to go through. The donation platform is super streamlined. It creates a certificate which can be super fun as a teaching moment for kids. These donations are 100% tax deductible. Of course, there are other groups as well, like the Penny Pines, which do this sort of thing. So if you belong to a participating group, that's great too. So if you're interested, check again the link in my bio, and let's invest in a greener future for California and the world.